This is the Brisbane Lions Fancast with Dom Fay and Michael Whiting.
Yes, welcome to the Fancast for another week, and this week, Mike, we are kicking it off in a very sombre tone. It was not pleasant, was it?
No, it was a bit of a debacle. Before we went on air now, you just mentioned that you thought those days had gone, but apparently not.
Yeah, I think we've had many chats over the off-season, and Lepa has mentioned himself that his aim for the year was to have the end of blowouts, but it does seem like they're not completely done just yet. There was that one more to come on the weekend. Hopefully, that might be it, but there were some issues there that you'd hope would be addressed pretty quick.
It was just a terrible performance. I mean, I thought from the start the Lions lacked intensity, and realistically they were lucky to be as close as they were at half time. And then at the start of the third quarter, things turned around a little bit. I thought they were a bit more intense and raised an effort for 10 or 15 minutes. But as soon as Gold Coast put the foot down, Brisbane had no answer. And Justin Lepich was right in his post-match press conference. He really pointed the finger at the leaders, and it wasn't a lack of leadership, it was just a lack of people standing up to change the course of the match on Saturday afternoon. So I thought there was a lack of intensity and just a poor performance. So you can't afford to have those when you're in Brisbane's position.
So is that what you put it down to then, intensity and effort, I suppose? Is that what you put
That's
that
what it looked
down
like
to?
from me. I mean, I think the coaching staff would probably know a lot more than I would, but that's what it looked like from the outside. Gold Coast were just more desperate. I mean, they're a very good team. They've got a lot of class, but they're no bigger or stronger than Brisbane, and yet Gold Coast just bullied Brisbane out of the contest, and then they were able to use their speed on the outside, which they've obviously got more of. So, like, a lot of that desire, intensity, that has to be a big part of it. So, not good. They have to put that behind them and get on with things, because you don't get when you're in Brisbane's position, you don't get an easy match, do you, in Port Adelaide this week?
Yeah, you absolutely don't. A few things from the match to touch on. Obviously, the shattering ACL injury to Daniel Rich, which I think just devastated all, not just Brisbane supporters, but footy supporters, because he's a pretty special player to watch when he's on, and it's sad that he'll now miss 12 months. Yeah,
it's terrible news, isn't it? Probably the most important player, I think, in Brisbane's setup. I don't know if you agree with that, but if he's not the most important, he's in the top 2 or 3 anyway. And to see him go down you don't like seeing any player. It's happened to Brent Staker, it's happened to Clay Beams in the last 2 years at Brisbane, so you hate seeing those sort of injuries to anyone. But poor old Daniel Rich, I saw him in the dressing rooms afterwards. He had his head down. His parents had come over from WA to watch the match, so just terrible luck, and I guess he's got no choice but to begin rehab and start the big long process, and Brisbane's just got to put it behind them and get on with it, because as we said earlier, there's no time to stop in this league. You've just got to front up the next week and do your best.
If there is any silver lining to Rich's injury, I suppose it's that he is, I believe, getting married in the coming months, and his fiancée probably quite happy that he'll be around a little bit to help plan that.
Bit more time into the wedding, you think?
Yeah, you'd think so. And I mean, someone like a Clay Beams now, when he comes fit, will probably have more of a chance of getting a spot in the side to see how he develops. So it's a harsh game, and harsh injuries like that do happen, but I think we do all know Daniel Rich is the sort of person who will come back bigger and better. The other talking point out of the game was Daniel Merritt, with who knows what he was thinking with that elbow.
Well, I don't think he was thinking. That was the problem.
Yeah, I think you spot on there. And I think many Lions fans were pretty happy with 2 weeks. You'd take that and run, wouldn't you?
He's lucky to get 2 weeks, really. I mean, it was 3 weeks originally and down to 2 with an early guilty plea. So I think you're right. You take it and run, because that was, no matter which way you cut it, no matter how one-eyed a Lions supporter you are, that was poor play from Big Rog Merritt in the fullback there, and just something that Brisbane can't afford. They've only got a minimal number of senior players to lean on, and senior voices to listen to out on the field, and when you've got one of your key defenders and one of your key backline voices doing that, it just puts the team in a difficult position. And I think he'd be having a good hard look at his not only that act, but having a look at himself at the moment, Rog, because he's left the team short for a couple of weeks there.
Yeah, he absolutely has. The few players I thought who probably got a pass mark on the weekend were a few of the youngsters. I thought Aish played well coming on as a sub. I thought Lewis Taylor was all right. Marco Paparone, who we'll be chatting to in a minute on the show, he played pretty well. Tom Rockcliffe back in great form, but apart from that, it was
slim pickings, wasn't it? Thankfully, at the game that I was covering for work, I didn't have to come up with the best players, because I thought it was a bit of a struggle. So thankfully that was my offsider that had to do that. So there was only a couple of good players, but you touched on the young guys there, and that's really the indictment on the senior guys, the fact that you've mentioned 4 players there and 3 of them are kids. So a few of those older guys, which you've alluded to in the first couple of rounds, aren't in great form, particularly those defenders, and that's where things have to start in that back line. And and they have to lift, and so does the rest of the team, because there was only a handful that put their hand up and could be happy with their performance against the Suns.
So now we approach a match against, well, definitely the biggest improvers of the last 12 months, Port Adelaide. What do you do to rebound from a match like that, particularly a new coach like Justin Lepich? I mean, I personally would hope he doesn't wield the axe too strongly at the selection table, but you just don't exactly know how you rebound from that.
No, I don't think he will wield the axe too much. I don't think he can, to be honest. I don't know if Brisbane's got that many options to fall back on. Obviously, there'll be a couple of changes with Rich and Merritt that we've just touched on, but there's two automatically. I don't think he can change too much more than that. At this stage, you can put that performance down as an aberration. It was one poor performance out of 3. I think everyone else deserves another chance, don't they? I would have thought. I don't know. What do you think from a fan's view? Would you like to see those guys get another crack? I would think they deserve another go.
Yeah, so would I. And I think also if he did change the side too much at the moment, it would seem like Leper was uncertain or doubting things that he'd seemingly beforehand been quite sure of. And you don't want to see that from a new coach. You want to see stability and certainty in what he's backing in. So I'd like to see a similar lineup. I suppose the interesting question for me is, does a key defender like a Jordan Burke or a McStay or Gardner, I'm not sure how they're exactly tracking in the reserves, or Goose even, does he come in for a merit, or do you back in Lyle, Clark and Patfull to play the tall roles down back and bring in someone like a Harwood for merit, which is probably what I'd say is my preferred option?
I'm with you. Like, I've thought for 2 weeks in a row that Brisbane's been too tall in their defensive end. It's worked in the fact that they're not conceding a lot of marks in that defensive 50, but they're conceding a lot of goals at ground level. That's because they've been too big. They've had 3 genuine talls plus Joel Patfull. I think, as you mentioned, Lyle, Clark and Patfull would do the job as 3 talls, and I'd bring in a Ryan Harwood. But if they wanted to bring another key defender, I think Darcy Gardner's apparently been going okay, although I haven't seen too much of the twos, but apparently he's had a couple of okay outings. It might be a little soon to bring him in, though, I think. But I'm with you. I'd just bring Harwood in for merit, get a little bit more run out of that back line, because we know one thing Port Adelaide's got to run, so you're going to have to match that. Daniel Rich, you've got to replace him. Who you bring in?
The options, I suppose, you've got Buick, Crisp, who are definitely viable options. For me, I think, despite the fact that it would be another kid in the side, I think you'd put Nick Robertson in. I think he's been impressing in the reserves. He impressed in the preseason. I think you give him his chance, and I think it probably be very richly deserved at this stage.
Geez, we're on the same page today.
For the first time.
I know. I'm with you exactly. I think Robertson has deserved his go. He was obviously been very close. He played all those preseason matches, really tough. And while it exposes a lot of kids at once, because there's Aish and Taylor, and you'd throw Nick Robinson into that midfield mix as well, you've got to do it at some stage, don't you? So I think just wheel him out and let him go. And he's been probably the next most impressive, so I think he's earned his spot.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. The question then, I suppose, is what kind of a result on Saturday afternoon would you deem as acceptable as a rebound from that one? I mean, are we thinking... Obviously, I think we're both on the same page thinking it's going to be very, very tough to win against Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. So if we're looking at bar a win, what kind of a loss would be an honourable loss?
It's hard to put points margins on these things, I think, because we saw in round 1 against Hawthorn, they lost by 8 goals, but I thought that was a very creditable performance. But if you sit here and say you're going to lose by 8 goals, you think that's poor. But in that instance, it wasn't. So I find it very difficult to put points differentials on these things. But it'll be pretty obvious whether Brisbane's had a crack or not. We've seen both extremes in the first 3 rounds of when they have had a dig and when they haven't, which was against Gold Coast on the weekend. So I really just want to see, I would think the Lions would want to see 4 quarters. It's a cliche and it's very simple, but that's what it is. It's contested footy, which they lost against Gold Coast by, I think it was -37 or -40 or something. They've got to level that up and they've got to play for 4 quarters. It's pretty simple, and if you do that, you'll give yourself a chance. So that's a minimum requirement, I think.
You did mention Port Adelaide's run, and one of our best runners is Marco Paparone, and he'll be joining us on the Fancast right after this.
The best way to keep track of everything Lions is to head to lions.com.au. It's the first place to find the latest Lions news and videos, get the lowdown on upcoming games, results and player stats. There's also great ways to interact with live chats, downloads and Player of the Year voting updates. And with a social media hub, you can connect with all the Lions social media activity. lions.com.au. Everything Lions, all in one place.
He's forced his way into the best 22 this year under Leper and has impressed many fans. It's Marco Paparone joining us on the Fancast today. How you going, Marco?
Good, thanks. How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're pretty good. Now, just on the start to your season, I mean, you weren't a regular senior player last year, but it seems that over the pre-season you've worked your way into the senior side. What did you work on over the pre-season to make that happen and to get yourself a starting position in round one?
Yeah, so we had to change a game plan, and Leopard wanted me to be a running kind of half forward to hold the perimeter. So I've been working on our game plan and the running patterns and just being good with my skills. So yeah, I've kind of broke into the side that way by being able to work to the game plan and play that perimeter role.
Marco, I think you played 5 games last year, a little bit in and out of the team. You've had three in a row to start off. How have you felt during those 3 matches, and do you feel like you're sort of slowly adjusting to the speed of AFL?
Oh yeah, definitely. The first 3 games this year, I feel like I've adapted and just kind of more confident with the bigger bodies and being able to keep up to the speed of how quick the AFL's got. So yeah, I just feel more confident with my body size and being able to run out the games as well.
Was the mood of the boys pretty shattered after the weekend, and have you guys rebounded all right so far this week, or is it still a pretty down mood at the moment?
Yeah, the loss hit us pretty hard. We were bummed for a couple of days afterwards, but we had a train today. Everyone got up and about, want to kind of redeem ourselves against Port Adelaide this weekend.
And obviously there's been a bit of bad news for the club early in the week, Marco, with the news on Dan Rich doing his ACL and Dan Merritt being suspended. Particularly the Richie sort of news when it's one of your leaders, and I guess he's pretty popular sort of player. Like, how does that affect the team?
Yeah, it was bummed hearing that Richie did his ACL, but we've got a few young kids raring to go. They played well in the reserves this week. It would be a big hole to fill, but I think the likes of Robbo and Cutler, running midfielders, will be able to fill the gap. And yeah, it's just being a leader. Richie on field is remarkable, so we're going to miss that leadership on the field this week, I feel.
Tom Rockcliffe has already commented briefly on this, but obviously you are coming up against Jared Pollock in the Port Adelaide colours this week, and as another one of the young guys at the club, I'm just wondering if you think there'll be any of the any words spoken to Jared on the field, or do you think that will all be left behind?
I feel like it will all be left behind, but there'll be a few cheap little words voiced, I'm sure, on the field. People with their own opinions, but yeah, we'll get into it like we'll get into any other player, I feel.
And Marco, what about, I guess, your own stay at the club? It's your second year now, and I guess there'll be a lot of people out there wondering how you fitted in at the club. A few guys obviously struggled the past couple of years. In your second year now, how have you found it?
Oh, I've loved it. Moving into the house with the other boys, I've kind of relished the opportunity to play AFL footy and loving it up here in Brisbane. Yeah, no desire to go home. And yeah, I'm just loving the opportunity I've been given at the moment.
It's obviously early days then, but you do expect to be sticking around the club?
Yeah, I do.
Gee, mate, you've probably made a few people happy by saying that.
I'd imagine. So, now, obviously, you've also got people would know if they follow you on Instagram, a long-time girlfriend from Perth. Is she looking at moving over anytime soon?
Yeah, we've been speaking about it. I think she's going to finish uni this year and then move up at the beginning of next year for my 3rd year, she said. So, yeah, there's been a little bit of talk about that, which would be really good.
Brilliant, mate. Just on Port Adelaide this week, they're coming off a loss, obviously, which probably hasn't done you guys any favours. How do you rate them, and what do you think about them? What are their strengths? Do you see?
Port just shot up last year. They're running game. They run out games really well, use their skills really well. It's going to be a running game, I feel, on Adelaide Oval this week, and they're going to be an up-and-coming team, so it's going to be a big hit out.
You touched on the running there, Mark, and that's obviously your big strength as a player. Can you tell us if you had any background in distance running at school or anything like that, or have you just sort of developed that tank in the last year or two?
Yeah, I think under 16s primary school never was a big runner or anything, but yeah, under 16s I found out that you had to have a big tank to run AFL, and just kind of did my own running, and it really paid off. A couple of years later, I've been able to run out games and big tanks, yeah.
Do you guys draw inspiration from a side like Port Adelaide, who were, very down in 2012 and then had quite a dramatic turnaround with a new coach? Do you take some inspiration from that and hope you can follow their lead?
Oh, absolutely. We can follow their lead. it's kind of just given us confidence. And same with West Coast a couple of years ago, being down bottom 8 and then shut up to the final. So yeah, hopefully we can do what they did, figure out how they did it, and yeah, continue with that.
What's the main thing you're expecting out of yourselves this week, Mark? Obviously, a lot of negatives, I guess, out of last weekend's performance. What's the number one thing you're demanding of yourselves this weekend?
Win the contested footy. We got absolutely smashed last week against the young side. And so, yeah, we've been talking about it all week. Like, we always want to get out there, win the contested footy and stick to our game plan.
And in terms of your personal role, do you see yourself going forward playing more as on the wing or more as a half forward?
Yeah, I've spoken to Lefford a little bit, and just at the moment I'll be playing that high half forward and then getting a couple of spells on the wing to use my run. Yeah, and hopefully kind of develop my game into a winger's position.
You touched on a little bit earlier about just having a bit more confidence in playing a couple of games now, and we touched on your running ability. How do you feel when you're matching up against, I guess, senior bodies that have got 4 and 5 and 6 and 8 years? Do you feel like you're far off matching them physically, or you still got a bit of a way to go?
I've got a bit of weight to put on, definitely. Still pretty skinny, but no, in terms of contested footy, I feel like I can win contested footy against the bigger blokes. Just making a contest, it's just being stronger. I just need to get a bit more strength behind me so I can use my one-on-one marking.
I remember when you were drafted, there were a lot of perhaps odd comparisons to someone like a Nick Rewalt as a running almost key forward. Do you think that will be something you'll perhaps one day grow into, playing a more key position, or do you think you'll always be more of a runner?
I'm not really too sure. I'm not really too sure. I'd like to play a bit like key forward, but I think I might be a bit short nowadays when they do have the keys in 198 centimetres and I'm only 194, so maybe height might not let me do that.
All right, well, we'll just wrap it up with one from Twitter. I put out on Twitter that we were getting you on, and Jorgo has tweeted through, he wants to know how you've been directed to play, your role in the side, and what key performance indicators you have to tick off each week to hold your spot, and whether goals kicked plays any role in that.
Yeah, goals kicked, not a major factor at the moment. It's more just making sure teams can't, from a stoppage, come out the back and get onto the fat side. So it's just mainly my setups at the moment, holding my perimeter, just not letting teams get around out of our bubble. And goals, maybe hopefully won a game, will help me keep my spot. But yeah, it's more just being able to hold my perimeter and not let them get past us.
Well, thanks for joining us on the Fancast today. All of us have been stoked to see your development so far this year, and hopefully the boys can rebound well against Port Adelaide on the weekend.
Thank you very much, guys.
This weekend, the Lions are down to Adelaide Oval to take on Port Adelaide in a match that I think will be almost highlighted by the Jared Pollock against his former club matchup. How do you think that's going to play out on Saturday, Mike?
I reckon there might be a little bit of niggle. Like, there's certainly a few of the Lions boys weren't happy about the way those younger guys left the club, particularly Pollock, as he was quite outspoken in the fact that he chose his club. He wanted to go to Port Adelaide, and that didn't go down too well with a few of the guys. So I think there might be a little bit of niggle. Obviously, they're not going to take it too far, but I think he might be copping a few less than subtle sledges out there, Pollock.
Yeah, absolutely. The details for this game is it will be at Adelaide Oval on Saturday, 1:40 PM local time, which I believe is 2:10 our time.
Who are you on, Dom? That's
Look,
a question.
I'm going to be realistic this week. I do think Port Adelaide will get over the top of us by about 30 or 40 in the end. I want to see at least periods of the matches where we look like the better side. That's if we could. The thing is, we're coming into round 4. We haven't won a quarter yet. Firstly, it'd be great to win a quarter this weekend, but I'd like to just see...
That's a good stat, mate. You've done your homework.
Yeah, I've done my homework this week. I would just like to see patches where we do look like the better side. And, I don't think, bar maybe 2 or 3 minutes, there were any of that against the Gold Coast. So that's what I want to see this weekend. What about you?
I'm with you. I think Port Adelaide will win by a similar margin. I think 5 or 6 goals. They're just a bit cleaner and a bit classier, and they've had 12 months under Ken Hinkley at the moment, and they're a very good team. They're going to be stinging from their rare fade out against North Melbourne last week. So I think they'll bounce back. But I'm a bit the same as you. I just would want to see a consistent 4-quarter effort and just a lot more intensity. Let's just see some effort, fellas. Get out there and put your body on the line and show some intent.
We'll be back next week to review the Port Adelaide match and look forward to the big Easter Thursday clash against Richmond. Until then, this is the Fancast. Bye.